Welcome to Common Unity. I'm Jason Fox.
And I'm Dr. Gabriel Lewis, and we are bringing the community together with a common unity.
Good.
You sound fucking amazing, boy.
Amazing, mate.
I watched the Elvis movie and I'm like, is this actually Elvis I'm sitting beside here?
Oh, very good.
Oh, well, should we just get into it?
Yeah, guys, I'm happy to talk to you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen.
Have you pressed record, Jason?
Well, we'll find out, won't we? We'll see if we bring this back up. So today, as all our guests, another guy I met drinking beers and we've become really good mates. He's a PGA pro that shoots about 30 over. He's got a day job, but he's also a large housing provider. He homes a few people, and we thought we'd bring it in to share his story today. So I'd like to welcome Kirk Vosper.
Oh, thank you, guys. I'm so excited to be here, and really professional setup. And all I'm saying is, why have you left me to like number 6 or 7? What was where was the phone call? I was available for the last few weeks. What's going on?
Well, I just know how much of an important man you are and how busy you are, and I thought I've got to iron out the bugs before I get him because I'd hate to drop the ball with such a high value human.
I see. That makes sense. So you're warming up for me, so now we're going to give our best show. I love it.
And I wanted to ensure there was enough listeners, so I had to build up the audience so that people actually heard you when you came on.
That also makes sense. Yeah. I don't want to be talking to nobody. I want a good message here. So excellent.
All right, so sit back down and enjoy the ride.
All right, you asked the questions. I've got some awesome answers. I don't know what they are yet, but I think what did Vicky say to me? She said, be yourself. And I said, but I'm a bit of an asshole. She said, okay, maybe you're right. Just be nice.
Yeah. So, Kirk, where did it all start, mate? You've been a Tauranga most of your life, or?
Look, interesting question. For since I was 11, I've been in Tauranga. I love Tauranga. It's a beautiful place, and I put a lot of effort into appreciation. And one of the things I think to myself, I go, okay, look, if I had to choose, where am I going to live in the world? I look at the globe, I'd go, well, geez, I think it'd be New Zealand. I think that'd be the place that trumps all the other places. And then I go, if I think I'm going to live in New Zealand, which part of New Zealand would I live in? Well, I like Tauranga best. And if I'm going to live anywhere in Tauranga, where am I going to live? Well, I love Otamoto and Pillins Point. So that's where I'd go. And then I'd go, well, out of all of those places, where would you want to be? My house. So every day I wake up and go, I'm exactly where I want to be in the whole world. And I think that's just so cool.
You've got to have that gratitude, eh?
Oh, look, it's the most important thing. It's what we teach the kids. Appreciation is so important because it's so easy to think, the world's coming in, collapsing in on us. But the reality is the world's amazing for us here in New Zealand, and it's only as good as we make it. So let's make it good. Yeah.
And just with some of the background, you're pretty well tuned on the New Zealand map as well. Have you done quite a lot of travelling?
I love geography, right? It's one of my loves. My dad used to teach it to us when we were kids. We'd go on drives up the back roads along gravel. We don't know where we're going, but the reason was we haven't been there before, so we'd go and see something.
Just explore.
Yeah, explore. And look, I think that's really interesting because I've got this ginormous bucket list. Poor Jason's heard about this many times before. Yeah, Jason. But
I thought there was a button.
But the bucket list for me is a big deal. So I've probably just created that in the last 5 years or so. But writing down the things I want to do and writing down what makes me excited, the experiences I want to have, as well as the experiences I have had that I appreciate, has really made life meaningful for me. And if I look at some of the things on there, it's 1,350 odd strong. So it's a lot of experiences I want to have. I've done about 750, nearly 800 of them. And if I look at them, some of the ones you might think are going to be standouts, not particularly exciting experiences, because it doesn't come down to the experience. It comes down to the experience. What did I feel at the time? Who was involved? Yes. Did I enjoy myself? Did I, would I do it again?
Process.
Yeah. So it's not about ticking boxes. It's about actually each one of those representing an experience. And for me to go, look, which ones did I like? Did I like going to see the Leaning Tower? No, I didn't like that at all. It was a bad experience. We felt rushed, and there were too many people there, and it was not particularly interesting to me. But seeing my boy score his first try, I got tears in my eyes, and I was just so excited, to see that happen. It was this winter, and that's the way it works. It's you can't predict how good an experience is going to be until you've actually lived it. So again, I've done, I think it's over 700 of them. I've got 600 and something to go, and I'm going to finish that bucket list. And it's going to be that bucket list is going to be the story of my life. Right? If life's about experiences, then that bucket list tells the story of my life, the experiences I had, what I thought about them, and if I do every last one, I can die happier than anybody who's ever lived, I reckon.
Yeah, I was just seeing a client today, and my staff was just saying, hey, do you regret all the things that you've done, because what you've done has absolutely destroyed your body? And he turned around and was like, absolutely not. I've lived a great life. I absolutely love it. I'd do it all again.
Yeah, your scars are like your tattoos. They tell a story at the end of your life, right?
Yeah, it's really cool to have that perspective too.
Without a doubt. And any time, I think I've heard Jason talk about this with you guys on the podcast previous, which is, wherever you are at the moment, that's a reflection of the life that you've lived, right? And I'm definitely no angel. I've had some, I've done terrible things and good things. Like if I was running for Parliament, I don't think I'd make it through the first week like Sam did.
There'll be some commentary on that on the podcast coming out today.
You could bring me down alone, Jason. So, but what it does mean is everything that's gone before has led to the outcome that I am now. And if I'm happy now, then it was all worth it.
Going back to what you were saying too, like the Leaning Tower not being so exciting for you, I think what happens is expectation. Like, we're going to the Leaning Tower. It's one of the biggest monuments in the world. This is going to be so incredible. I seen a postcard. There was no one there and the lights were on. And you get there and all you see is 2,000 people standing around it. And you're rushed and you're busy and you're tired and you're probably hungover. That's what happened when we went to Colosseum in Rome. We walked through it severely hungover and we're like, oh, God, we've got that tour. And we're like, get us out of here. That's all we were thinking is like, how can we get out of here? But because of that expectation, it's a letdown. Whereas, tonight, for example, we might walk down the road, run into like 4 or 5 people, and we just were going down there to have a beer, the two of us. But all of a sudden, the night takes a tangent. And you're like, that was one of the best nights ever.
It's one of my favourite things when something comes from nothing. Love it.
Yeah, because there's no expectation, so you can't be disappointed. Whereas if you build it up in your head and you get to that thing and you're like, oh, that was a letdown.
You're right. Vicky and I, Vicky's my fiance, love Vicky. We used to watch this show called 4 Weddings, and it was really interesting watching the show. So what happens is these 4 brides go to each other's weddings, and they then rank the weddings. And the key takeaway is that they don't compare the weddings to each other. They don't go, this is the best and this is the second best. They compare the wedding to what they expected the wedding to be. So when they get together in the first instance, they describe what their wedding's going to be. And if it lives up to that expectation, then they're like, wow, that's great. And if it doesn't, then no matter how good the wedding was, they still get panned in the marking. So yeah, really interesting.
Well, the wedding one's right. You can spend all the money on the flowers and everything you want. The 2 things people remember is if they didn't get enough food or piss.
That's a fairly good summary.
That's the only thing weddings are really measured on is, like our wedding, we had decanters of like spirits all across the head table, and we had a whole lot of like fucking punches and all sorts of stuff, and people were like, oh my God, I can't believe they had that, because normally it's beer and wine only or something, and we're just like, go for it, guys. And
look, I don't know. I think the most important thing at a wedding would be the people, right? Because you can put on all the drink and all the what did you say? Food, all the food and drinking. If the people suck, I think the wedding's going to suck.
Yeah, well, it's the people.
The people.
But the alcohol and stuff's a social lubricant, and what people
you're onto it. Yeah.
When they leave there, if they ran out of piss at 8 o'clock, they're like, well, the wedding was fine, but we left by 8:30 because there's nothing left to drink. Like that's the only thing people will talk about. They'll only find the negative. So as long as you can lubricate them enough to get them through to the end of the night, it'll be something to talk about.
Yeah, you want that wedding where everybody wants just a little bit more. It's like, oh, it's closed too early. That would be amazing.
Yeah. You know how you get somebody wanting something more?
What's the answer?
You go away and get eloped. They want to be there. I'm joking. Not really.
Yeah, I think
everyone's like, thank God they went and got eloped. I'd hate to have.
So Vicky will be listening to this and she'll go, oh my God, I can't believe you're talking about weddings, because we've actually been together for 22 years and haven't quite managed to get married yet. So, it's on the list of things to do. It's on the bucket list there somewhere. So, yeah, maybe one day.
Yeah. Bit higher up on the bucket list, maybe.
I think we're fairly well committed. We've got 2 kids and a few houses.
So if we move along the story a little bit, a lot of people we have on here aren't educated, but you actually did an education in your life. So you studied economics, didn't you?
Yeah, went to Auckland University. It was just the best time. Had a great time there. I met Vicky there, which was so cool. Went to O'Rourke Hall, the halls of residence there, and I spent a couple of years there. And it's quite a great place. Like 350 young people, 18 and 19-year-olds, all living together away from home for the first time. The drinking age had just dropped to 18 that same year, and we had a great time, a really, really good time. Yep. Look, it was a good school, good business school. I did study commerce there, marketing management and economics as well. I think here's one of the interesting things is when you're a kid and you go to study, it's really hard to put real life examples close to you. It's hard to actually understand these concepts because they're just theoretical, right? I would say if I went back and did that same degree now, I would just find it the easiest thing in the world because of all of the
real life experience.
The experience that goes with it. Imagine learning about reading management accounts and you're 18 years old, right? It's very hard to see any value in that or understand what even that means. But now you'd go back and you'd go, wow, geez, that's some really good learnings. But regardless, three amazing years at university. I've had a passion for economics, really loved it, and still to this day, I read so much about economics. I read so much about the economy, and I love to talk about it. So, I could be a regular guest every second week if you want, talking about economics.
Well, I don't have my own economist. Obviously, people have got guys like what's his name, Tony
Alexander?
Yeah, Tony Alexander and stuff. So it'd be nice to have my own personal one that can come in.
Oh, but look, here's the thing. I think Warren Buffett talks about it. He says, can you believe these millionaires and billionaires take advice from these economists who, are trying to predict the future and they've got, sort of no
assets,
no assets themselves. I see that a lot. I read a lot of articles where I just go, look, you're not in a position to be making these outrageous predictions. Why don't you just give us the stats and let us figure out what to do with it.
It's a little bit like being a time traveller and going forward in time, finding the lotto numbers coming back and then not buying a lotto, right?
I think it's pretty close to it. Of course, my start after university was in foreign exchange, and that was just a fascinating thing, learning the markets and participating, understanding supply and demand, and where currencies get their value from. What I found was as simple as what we've just discussed, is that the commentators, the economists could tell you exactly why the markets moved after they happened, but they could never tell you them before it happened, right? So, it's just complete nonsense. They don't know. They're just trying to tell a story after the fact.
Yeah. And that's all day trading, and any of that stuff is too. I mean, you can gamble on it, but any day trader that does okay statistically looks at trends on a graph and goes, okay, that's what happened last time. That's what I'm going to hedge my bets against. Look,
you're not far off, right? Currency trading, cryptos is sort of the same. It's a zero-sum game. So for everybody who made $1, somebody else lost $1, right? So you're and it's even worse than that because there's also the brokers that take their cut as well. So to call it gambling is a really good summary of it because it is. And I'd go a step further when it talks about cryptos. I would say that falls under the category of Ponzi scheme, where early adopters get their gains from late adopters. So that's my view on it. If you agree, that's cool. If you don't, good luck to you.
I know we've had that conversation, and I hear what you're saying, and I've quoted it too after having that conversation with you probably 12 months ago, but it's no different to gold or silver. If you buy gold or silver, you don't physically have the gold and silver unless you go down that track.
Good. I love a good argument. So the thing with gold and silver is they do have intrinsic value. So gold actually can be used in industry and even just jewelry, right? So it actually has value. If it was just sitting in a river, you'd pick it up because it's actually desirable. Silver is the same, highly used in industry. So I think that's what separates them.
If you physically have it, correct. But when you buy it on the share market, buying gold and silver, you don't physically have it. So you're saying it's got intrinsic value.
Yeah.
There's NFTs and stuff out now where you can intrinsically buy a Rolex, because everyone knows you buy a Rolex, you walk out the shop, it doubles in value. Your 12 grand Submarine is now 25 grand. Your 30 grand is now 60 grand. But
let's talk Pokemon cards, because that's something I'm interested in, right? So,
too.
Did you like Pokemon?
Yeah.
Oh,
What's your favourite?
I love it that we're a couple of adults.
I'm just going to
talking
drop down.
Pokemon.
I'm just going to walk down to the pub. I'll see you guys soon. Let me know when you're done.
My wife will be listening now, and she's like, "Oh my god, I'm so embarrassed."
Oh, look, it is what it is, right?
I'm looking for another co-host.
What's your favourite Pokemon?
I do actually. Zekrom is my favourite Pokemon, but it's a bizarre thing. Me as a 30, 40 something adult, who's into these Pokemon. But there's so much more to the Pokemon than what you see on the surface. Is number one, I started the game 6 years ago, the Pokemon Go game, and the rule is if you start, you're going to finish, right? And how many people have just given up on the game, right? They started and aren't going to see it through to the end. So there's my first one. The second one is the Pokemon cards. Those things are valuable. They've outperformed shares in property over the last decade. And why? Well, look, because they're rare, right? That's what it's about. I think the Charizard card, that very, very valuable 1999 card, that's now over $1 million US.
Yes.
What a cool thing to have. And
Logan Paul,
look on the wall in here, guys. Yeah.
That Logan Paul's got a card that's $5 million USD.
Oh, is it 5 million now?
I think it's $5 million USD that he's put it around, he's made a chain out of it, and he's just minted it as an NFT, so he can sell 49% of it, or it might be the other way around. He holds 49% of it to a whole lot of people to buy into the NFT and have a share in owning that.
Yep.
Which is the same as the Rolex thing. You can own part of it, but it needs to be locked away in a vault somewhere, and you don't physically have it.
Look, maybe NFTs. Look, I understand them, just not in yet. Okay, so I mean, you've got to have desire for whatever it is, right? And the thing about Pokemon cards is that everybody, they've sold over 1 billion of these things. Everybody's chasing the rare ones. There's only 10 of them in the world. And if that's the case, somebody sees that and they're mesmerized by it. They go, "Wow, I've heard about this, but I've never seen one before." And as we get older and we get a few more dollars, we can do silly things like spend $1 or $2 million, $5 million on a card from our childhood. I've got some cool things at home. I've got Optimus Prime from 1984. I've got Voltron. Do you know Voltron?
Yeah.
Oh, I hope so. The original Transformer. Voltron from 1984 as well. He's about this big. He's got 5 lines that all clip together. I bought him from America, and I think he's one of my favourite purchases. And one of the other ones I bought was I had this incredible Lego set as a kid in the 80s, and I've actually held on to most of that Lego, bright yellow Lego, throughout my time. I've handed my Lego down to my boy, and what I managed to do one time, I think it popped up on my TradeMe or something, this exact Lego set that somebody had actually kept the box for and most of the parts, and I was able to purchase that, and just the nostalgia of it. And yes, you overpay by a huge amount, but boy, it's a cool thing to own.
Priceless.
Because you look at it and you think of those memories you had at the time, and I just think it's just a cool purchase. And what I'd really like to do is sort of display these things in a way that I can get real joy out of. Yeah, that plus a meteor as well. I want a meteor.
As long as it doesn't land. As long as it doesn't land in your front lawn, no way.
Right, yeah.
You need a big space.
So what we're learning from this conversation is you're quite investment minded, and you like something that you can feel and touch, right? You don't want something that is a digital fugazi. It's a fuzzy, it's a wazzy, it's a woo. Gotta hate may say, but you want something you can feel, touch, add value to. And
look, what I understand is markets, right? I understand supply and demand. I understand where things get their value from. One of my favourite things that my dad did for us as a kid was he made us sit around the table and play Monopoly. I love Monopoly. And the amount of learnings you can get from that game is quite incredible. Because look, at the start of the game, there's 22 coloured squares on there. There's a limited supply. There's a limited demand. There's only 4 players at the start. We're 2 sisters, my dad and I on this occasion. And we then figure out, well, what's going to happen over time? And you start figuring it out intrinsically. You start going, I know what's going to happen. I need to purchase properties because over time they're going to go up in value. And I know if I just sort of keep going around the board and don't buy anything and just keep the $1,500 I started with, I'm not going to win. I'm going to lose. And I'm going to lose actually pretty aggressively and pretty quickly because the moment I have to start paying rent on some of these properties, it's all going to go down south. So, well, what do you learn? You learn, well, look, there's a supply and demand going on here, and I need to, get my hands on some of this because I can see it gaining in value, capital gains over time. I can see some income being generated when people land on it for rent, and you start going, I think I can see how this might work in the real world as well.
Yes.
And that's certainly where it started, I believe. Good old game of Monopoly, the biggest selling game.
Teaches you a lot, actually. It really does.
Look, it does. Look, I can explain some really interesting and complex economic ideas through Monopoly. Forgive me, Jason. I'm sure you've heard this while we've had a beer or two. But I'll ask you, Gabriel. So the question is, at the start of the game, Mayfair, right? It's typically $400, right? That's what it says its face value is. And over time, let's say we play for 4 hours or so. The question is, why is somebody prepared to pay $4,000 for it 4 hours into the game? And it's so interesting. Nobody's ever given me the right answer. I've asked real estate agents, brokers, Jason. So what's the answer?
Is it because when somebody else lands on it, it'll bankrupt them?
Look at the start. It's still got there's still rental income from the start as there is at the end. There's not a demand. There's not a supply issue because there was only one of these at the start of the game, and there's still one of them 4 hours into the game. A lot of people say, well, is it greed? I say, no, greed was the same at the start of the game. Everybody wanted to win. They still want to win 4 hours into the game. Yes. So, it's a really interesting question to ask. What has changed? Everybody knows it. They know it. 4 hours in, Mayfair ain't going for $400. It's going to cost you probably 10 times as much, $4,000. And the interesting question is why. Any other thoughts?
The other thing that I'd be thinking about is just because people want it.
That we call that demand, and demand hasn't changed.
Yep. It's similar to NFTs and Pokemon cards.
Well, yeah, maybe, but I would say the desire for it has been constant throughout. So, yes. If we did a quick quiz at the start of the game of each person, hey, do you want Mayfair? Yes. Do you want Mayfair? Yes. Yep, we all want it. Therefore, greed is constant as well, which I think is that's a really important lesson, that greed is constant.
Because at the beginning of the game, it's the first person who lands on it gets the luck of being able to.
That's a good answer.
So you've got to roll the die. Yes. The luck allows you to buy it.
Yeah.
At the beginning, right? At the end of the game, now you need to negotiate.
One of my favourite things about New Zealand Monopoly, you playing Monopoly in New Zealand, is that we just take it for granted that the New Zealand rules are the way that you should play it. But if you actually read the rules, it's completely different. You don't put money in the middle when you land on free park, that you get when you land on free parking. You don't go round once before you start. And if somebody chooses not to buy the property at the start, you actually have an auction for it. But look, the answer, here it is, right? I'll give you a clue. When you pass go, you collect $200. Mm-hmm. So what do you reckon? What does that lead to?
Then you land on.
I'm going to tell you because it's like, okay, nobody ever gets it, right? It's as simple as this: the supply of money, right? The supply of money. The go. A lot of people think represents your income, like from working. No way. Go represents the supply of money, the money supply, and money's created when you borrow, right? When there's debt. So every time somebody passes go, $200 worth of brand new money is introduced into the system. And if we count up all the money at the start, 1,500 times 4, well, that's $6,000. If we count up all the money 4 hours into the game, I'm telling you, it is many, many times that, probably 10 times as much. This is worth. And this is what we call inflation.
Yeah, I was just about to say.
Where the money supply is completely got out of whack with the supply of property. That is inflation, and that is why prices go up over time. If you're wondering why we're inflation at the moment, because we overdid it. We printed too much, and the supply of properties didn't come up to meet it. So, yeah, really, really interesting. That's Monopoly. I love it.
Yeah, it's an accurate point, and I've never thought of it that way with the inflation of the money introduced to the board.
This is what I love too, is that everyone keeps telling me that houses are going to crash and the bubbles burst and this is the end of it. I'm like, how can that be the case when your aluminium's 30% dairy, your wood's 30% dairy, your wages are going up, like everything's going up. I'm not going to sell you, if my house is worth $1 million, I'm not going to sell it to you for $700,000 if it's going to cost me $1.2 million to replace it. Like there will always be that land in the sand. And I know that there's debt to income ratios and there's going to be things that lasso it, but that's where international investors and stuff will probably come and take that place, because you'll never sell something that for less than replacement value.
Look, you know your stuff, Jason, absolutely. Look, the supply of land is fixed. They're not making any more of that. If the price to build a property or a building goes up, that needs to be taken into account as well. And if they keep printing more money, and that's exactly what they're doing, well, then the ratio of money to properties available is going to change. So I can tell you this with 100% certainty, the price of a property in 10 years' time will be more than it is today. And if it's not, wow, I just couldn't even imagine what magical thing has happened. That is the magic of inflation.
And I've got one friend I've been having a conversation with for quite a long time. He's the same age as us, and he's like, the house price is going to drop. I was like, I don't know if they are, mate. Yeah, they're going to drop. They're going to drop. And about 2 months ago, I said, now's your time. Buy a house. He goes, no, there's going to be more hurt. I'm like, yeah, there may be. But there's also a whole lot else happening as far as inflation around the world. And you can't, I wouldn't be hedging my bets on waiting 12 months for a house, because Reserve Bank just needs to change the rules and loosen the reins on
official cash flow rate.
Yeah, not so much the OCR, but I'm in finance, I should know the term. But how we're scanning accounts and going, all right, your savings is now a fixed cost.
CFA.
The triple CFA stuff, but that specific side of it of, all right, you're saving $200 a week, so now that house is not affordable. They released that. They've loosened it a little bit, but not really. The rules are still a little bit out there. As soon as they go, you know what, we fucked up, actually, you probably will drink less coffee if it means you can own a house, or maybe you won't go out the piss 3 days on the weekend, you only go out 1 day on the weekend if it means you can own your own house. We're going to loosen those rules. That'll create a whole lot of affordability for people, which then will create demand. And
look, it makes sense. Like, I think that is the. I've lost my train of thought. It was really brilliant. Just know that it was good. Yeah,
carry on.
So how did you get this labour of love for commerce to begin with, to go and study it?
Yeah, so look, I think if we go back, I think I remember telling the guidance counsellor at 14, that guy, that I wanted to be a property developer, and I was told, you have to have quite a bit of money to do that. And I remember going, okay. I didn't give up on it, obviously, but I certainly thought, okay, maybe I shouldn't be taking advice from you, was my first thought. Look, I read a lot of books. This guy, Ashley Church, you might have come across Ashley Church. He quite regularly writes for One Roof, for the Herald. He just recently mentioned a book that I read in my teens, which was a really big deal for me. A bright yellow cover, hardcover, and it was called Jones on Property by Bob Jones from Wellington.
Oh, he's a legend.
Absolute legend, right? I just love his style of writing, which is, what's the opposite of woke? Because that's what it is.
Anti-woke.
Right? Yeah, and just
facts.
Absolutely love it. Absolutely love the way he writes.
Non-2022.
Exactly.
He identifies as a male.
The book I believe must have been published in 1977 or so. So when I was reading it in the 90s, it was still completely relevant, right? So I was able to, take all of the ideas that he was putting forward and apply them, and start thinking about, well, actually, I can see a way to start building capital and start, getting ahead in life, and that was really exciting. Look, another book people talk a lot about, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. For me, unfortunately, how do you put it? Not unfortunately, that was consistent with the other things I'd read up to that point, but it just, it was a real mindset book as opposed to, practical, which Jones on Property was really good at. And then another guy, which I just love this. So this guy from New Zealand, his name's Dolph de Roos, and he was a New Zealander, a really big property investor, and he wrote a book called Investment Property in New Zealand, something like that. So I read that book, great book, talks about economic cycles and gives some good ideas. But I now follow him what's this, 30, 40 years later on TikTok. Isn't that cool?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I see the guy, I'm like, geez, I'd love to just send him a message and say, hey, look, your book was pretty influential in some of the
should.
things
I'm sure
I
they'd
did.
appreciate it, mate.
Yeah,
Just
I reckon, yeah.
You really should.
maybe we should get him. Say, hey, I've just got this podcast. I'd love to have a conversation with you on it. Come down to Tauranga and we'll get him on it.
Well, brilliant. Yeah. Look, there's a number of other books that were really influential. I just don't quite remember the names of them, to be honest. But each one you try to get one or two new ideas out of, and when you get that idea, you go, I see how I can implement that into the other knowledge I've got. But look, I don't want to go past my parents as well. You can't. My mum, incredibly intelligent lady. She lent me some money when I was about 14 years old to buy a boat, and that got me into my sailing, which I'm a big fan of. And that process by which I had to pay back that boat, interest and all, by working at the forecourt of a service station, that taught me more than you could know. That taught me I didn't want to do hard labour for the rest of my life, and there must be a better way. And that's certainly that was certainly very, very helpful. And then you take my dad, who's just an entrepreneur all through his blood. How can that not influence you as well? Yeah.
Yeah, Frank's an incredible guy.
Incredible guy. Yep.
I did that same example actually with one of my mate's sons. He was wanting his dad to buy him this $2,300 bike. And he just wanted to buy him it because he wanted the bike. And mate was like, do you have any work for him? And I was like, yeah, I've always got work. So he came and did a 12-hour day. It was a big day. He got $240, and I was like, you do realise you'll have to work 10 of these days to pay for that bike, and that's not even paying tax. Realise how hard it is? And then he kind of let go of the bike.
Look, it's fascinating. There's other things here, just I had two bosses at this particular job, and one was a good boss and one was a bad boss, and I still use that to this day. Where I go, I don't want to be that guy. I want to be this guy. It was the same job. We got the same production done, but this guy made the day fun, and this guy made the day not fun.
I'd argue the production changed. Sorry.
You're probably right. But it was the difference between me going, I'm looking forward to going to work, and me going, what a torture this is. Yeah.
And you naturally work harder as well because you respect the person. Like, you're not working properly as you should, but you're going to go out of your way to make sure you're doing everything.
You want to do a good job because they're good people, right?
Yeah.
I use that to this day when I manage people. I go, nobody likes the guy that looks over your shoulder and judges you on everything. They like the guy that trusts you and gives you what you need to do your job well. I think that's really, really important. Yeah.
You can also argue that actually a lot of what you do during the day no one enjoys. Like, there'll be a part of every job that no one enjoys, but if you enjoy the people you're around with all day long, you generally enjoy your job. So when I was at Repco, when I left school at 16, and that was my first full-time job, there's a period where I had a couple of mates come in. They became my best mates, and one of them, Phil, became my best man first time around for my wedding. And we just fucking loved being at work. We're pranking each other, we're doing stupid things. You throw a ball at your mate in the head from across the room at the time because you could get away with it. It wasn't a health and safety issue back in those days. But the task, that was probably the most high-stress job I've ever done, because on a Saturday shift, I managed it. We'd walk in there, and Grant Moffat from Heb would be there at probably 7:30, and we opened at 8, and he's already sitting there with his list of things that he needed. So as soon as you open the door, you got this high-value client coming in demanding stuff of you, and then it never let up until about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. None of us had lunch breaks, and we just worked and worked and worked, and there'd be 4 or 5 people in front of you, kind of like a clerk in the Pack and Save or something, right? Like, there was just someone, but everything was time-consuming because, all right, mate, here's my 1964 Zephyr here, and this is broken, and it's a part that's not available now. So a lot of time went into a lot of transactions. So people's emotions were getting built up and everything around it. However, the people I was with, we had a fucking ball. Like, every day we were still actually excited to go to work, and it was the people, not so much what we were doing for a job, because essentially it was a glorified Pack and Save, but the people, I'll never forget those days.
People are everything. Yeah, absolutely. Even if you don't like people, you still need to have good people around. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, look, I'll tell you one other thing I learned at this job, $4.30 an hour or whatever it was, paying off this boat, was I learned how to sell, and I learned I had a talent for it, and that was really beneficial. So they had this competition where we were going to sell wiper blades, and the winner, the one who sold the most wiper blades, was able to get a bungee rocket, which they had down here on the Strand back then, and I just went, okay, let's get on with it, and bang, everybody who had a need for new wiper blades, I said, hey, we've got a special on right now. Let me take you in, we'll show you, I'll put them on for you, and I sold that place out of wiper blades, and I got my bungee rocket, and to this day, it's still a skill I really value. Selling is an important ability to be able to have for sure.
And Grant Cardone talks about that really well. Is that everything that we do is sales, right?
You're on to it.
I'm going out for dinner. What do you feel like? Oh, I don't know what I want. I tell you what, we're going out for chicken. We're going to go to Thai. Oh, that sounds good. Just sold you on Thai.
You're on to it.
Like everything that you do, every step of the day is a sale. So people learn sales. It's the quickest way to success. Every transaction, whatever it may be.
Look, sales is fascinating. I often describe it as it's like singing. Some people can just naturally sing. Some people should never sing and should just be quiet, and others can learn to sing. And hopefully
you're one of those, mate.
Yeah. Oh, what'd you say? I'm one of those.
Side note is side note. Kirk's a big fan of karaoke and
huge fan.
So anyway, I interrupt you. Carry on. Yeah. So yes, some people shouldn't sing. Carry on.
But yeah. So look, it's the same as selling, right? And I love it when we can teach people to sell. It's life changing. It's a skill that can be used anywhere. And for those that have got a talent for selling, it's life's a lot easier. Business is about selling, I think.
Yeah.
It's about filling that need as well that you don't realize that people need, or you're really helping them out without realizing that you're helping them. They're a really good seller.
Yeah. Look, I think the view that a salesperson's a smarmy sort of rip-off merchant. No. Absolutely not. It's sort of I describe it as first instance of taking complex things and making them sound simple, and then helping somebody get to the point where they can make an informed decision. And if that decision is for your benefit, well, so be it. But if it's not, I'd rather have a decision made than no decision made at all. So yeah, like selling's about you need to be optimistic to sell. You need to go, hey, look, do I like this? Can I get excited about it? If I can get excited about it, maybe I can get other people excited about it too. So yeah, it's just a great skill.
Yes.
If I can get excited about wiper blades, I didn't have a car, then like, that's a great starting point. Yeah.
Well, you get excited about the special and how you can help them realize, hey, actually, I did need wiper blades.
Look, it's the same. My dad, the real estate agent. He I think you could probably pay him nothing and he'd still do it because he just loves it so much. The thrill of the deal and putting stuff together and making things happen. And his best deals, of course, he always describes as everybody's a winner. And I think that's a great way to think about it.
And at his age, I don't think he needs to be working, but he's there every day because he loves it. He's that vibrant character.
He's addicted, man. He's addicted.
Yeah, he absolutely loves it.
So what age did you get into buying property?
This will surprise you. I think I bought my first property around 29, and that is mostly to do with timing the market. So it was a very good time to buy. It was the end of the GFC. It was at the bottom end. People were quite desperate to sell on a number of occasions. I bought my first home together with Vicky. Look, her and I were a team. She owns 50% of everything. So I just cannot speak highly enough of her and her ability to get on board and run with it. We bought our first house, and it was a great house. It was $800,000 back in 2009, I think it was, and that
was expensive.
That was a very expensive house.
That's very expensive.
Yeah. So Dad sold I don't know how many houses, but he said this one is the most expensive first home we've ever sold, and the reason for that was it was spectacular. I just love it. It's this most incredible piece of land I could imagine. I think the instructions to him were something like, "Oh, look, we want to be at the Mount or something like that." And he goes, "I think you better come have a look at this one. It hasn't been for sale in 60 years or something. You need to see it." And we came across, and I just
Is that the house you're in?
The house we're in now, our first home, the house we
epic.
still live in, the house I intend to still be living in 50 years' time, is this house. And it's just, I talked before about picking the house, right? Well, I describe this as the best house in the best city, in the best country, in the best world. So I'm over the moon with it. Huge piece of property, about 2,300 square metres. I've got an orchard. It came with 3 sheep. I killed one because I'm not a farmer. Turns out they don't eat camellias. My dad was a farmer, and he said, "Of course, you should know that." But look, the property, we feel rooted there. We go. This is a really special place, and it's particularly special because it's our first home. It's where my boy Max was born. It's where my girl Quinn was born. She was born in the hallway. That's another story, but that's very, very special. And then we will if everything goes well, we will still have that house when I die.
You buried the placentas there too, didn't you?
We did. We did. Yeah. So if I ever get in trouble and I have to sell the house, can I please have the placentas? But under a couple of pahuta trees.
Because Vicky's got Māori in her, right? So that's a huge thing. So once you've set roots like that, that's home.
It's home. Look, it's home. It's just, there's just no doubt about it. It's home. And look, we love it immensely. Yeah, really, really amazing. And it came with a pool table.
Ooh, very nice. It's a very similar story to myself, actually.
Yeah.
We bought our first, we bought our forever home as our first home, and for our first house price, and we completely gutted it, and we don't plan on ever moving. So we really don't. We absolutely love it. Like yourself, our placentas are there, and our son was born in the bath that needed renovation.
Yeah. Look, I love it. I love it, right? And you and I both have to appreciate how unbelievably rare that is, right? Yeah. That we were able to do that. And I wake up every morning and I just look out at the property and I just feel happy and appreciative. And and then I go down and I had a spa this morning and listened to a couple more of your podcasts. Common Unity, I love it.
Oh, awesome.
My guy, the advertising. So Kirk's got a day job, and as you've heard, he's very passionate about sales, and so essentially he's a sales manager of types. He's got a team of people underneath him. So I suppose he inspires. I'd like to think he inspires his team, and I know there's a really good culture there because I've met a lot of his team, and he's had events at his house and stuff. So it's not that he goes to work and he comes home, cashes in a check, and he goes away. But a lot of the people we have here own their own business. But Kirk's built a business around accommodation. So you brought your first home, and then at some point you went, all right, I need more of this. Like, where'd you go from there?
Look, I was locked and loaded, right? I had all these books I've read. I knew exactly what I was going to do, and we just went about it, right? So here's how it works. It's really simple. If you're listening, write this down because you can do it. I assume you can still do it. But what we did was we took the property, right? And we go, okay, look, here's step one. Brilliant. It's a good quality property. It's fundamentally powerful because of its location. It's got a good view and it's large in land mass. It's north facing. All of these things are really cool. So step one achieved, right? So what people who aren't out to sort of build a bit of a portfolio or even some wealth would likely go, now it's time to put aside the next 30 years and let's pay this thing off, right? No way. That's not how it works at all. Any principal paid down to me is an opportunity cost. That money could have been used somewhere else. So what do? Well, look, we got Uncle Stu in. He makes stunning schist walls, and he did some landscaping for us, right? So he changed the contours of the land. He made some these beautiful schist walls all the way around. He started sort of defining areas, the down lawn, the up lawn, garden beds, this sort of thing. You put it all together, and what I thought was a fairly minor change. Well, actually, it was a ginormous change. And the way that we know that we did good stuff is because I don't sell it. The sale of it doesn't tell us what it's worth. The valuers tell us what it's worth. And it's the way of having your cake and eating it too. the valuer comes along, and it's almost like the bank sees that as you've sold it. What's it worth? And they rank it. These ones are better. These ones are worth. It slots in here. This is what it's worth today in the current market from current sales figures. So once you've got that new number, and once these walls were done, the lawn was done, it was looking great. We'd popped it up by 30% or so. Well, yippity-zippity-do. And what we do is we take that valuation to the bank and we say, look, here's the new valuation. There's excess equity here. I'd like to take that equity. I'd like to use that as a deposit on my second house. And then we do exactly that. We deposit down on the second house. No money moves. We just sort of use that equity. We buy something new. The rent starts coming in. They help us to pay it down, and then we try to make that worth a bit more. And you keep doing that endlessly, theoretically, right? There's many things that stop that today. But I'll tell you, in the 90s, if I could have done it then, I'd probably have 2,000 houses by now. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, what's your thoughts on the current market with people trying to do that?
Well, again, fundamentally, I think this is the biggest advantage I have is I understand the economy. So, I'm not stressing because I understand where we are in the cycle. I understand what's coming next. I understand the opportunities that exist at each point. So, that means that I can sleep at night, right? But if you don't know that, if it's all just a bit mysterious, it's quite scary because you go, oh God, I think I better sell my house because the prices are going down or interest rates are going up. But if you understand that we just overcooked it a bit, we printed too much money, which is the creation of debt. If we printed too much money, we've got to put interest rates up. That's what the Reserve Bank's doing right now. That will then bring inflation under control. Once it's under control, everybody will get back to, actually, we like houses and up they'll go again. So, would I have bought in the last 2 years? Absolutely not. And there's going to be some poor buggers out there who've got negative equity, except that as long as they don't sell, then they'll never realise those losses.
The last 2 years, I don't know, like buying existing hasn't worked, but we've made our success out of building new. So even building our first home that we live in till this day, and we've tried to move multiple times and find different things, but once you've designed a house, you're like, actually, no, this bathroom's the way we like it and all the rest, so we end up anchored where we are. But if I pay a deposit on something today and it takes 2 years to build, the market's moved anyway, so you pick up equity by the time you move in.
You're onto it.
But if you buy existing and there's a valuation of $1.2 million and you go, oh, get to auction, you get excited and you pay $1.4 million, that's because you're excited. The house is worth 1.2. You paid 1.4 for it. That's on you, no one else. The value is 1.2. That's all you. So the market's been overcooked, as you say, and fear and greed drives markets, and that's what people are brought on, rather than actually just base numbers going, you know what, if I can buy it for this point, I'll walk away.
You're onto it. Yeah, I mean, Tony Alexander describes it as FOMO, right? So fear of missing out, and FOOP, I think, is the other one, which is fear of overpaying.
Yep.
Yeah, they fight each other. Look, that's just a pretty way of talking about supply and demand. Where's the market going? Look, I suspect over time, just through fundamentals, that it will go up again, but we've just got to get inflation under control. And to be honest, in our lifetime, it's probably the late 80s since inflation was even a problem. One of the things that I think New Zealand should be unbelievably proud of, something that I never hear anybody talk about, was we changed the world in the early 90s. I don't even know who was in the meeting, but some people got together in a meeting in Wellington, and they decided that instead of letting inflation just sort of be whatever, they said, let's use the official cash rate, wholesale interest rates, to determine what the value of money is. So we'll say we need inflation to be between 1% and 3%. Therefore, everybody will know that if it goes above 3%, then interest rates will go up. And if it goes below 1%, interest rates will go down. And that was adopted by the entire world. And that's how the world works today, where inflation dictates what interest rates are. And that was a New Zealand invention in the early 90s. Isn't that awesome? Yeah.
Well, that would have been around the time the Reserve Bank came in too, right? Because it used to be governed by government, which meant they had full control. So the whole thing with Reserve Bank is that they stand alone from governance, so that you can't have a politician say, hey, I think this is best for my policy. It's like, no, for the betterment of the country, the Reserve Bank controls our funds. And
the independence of the Reserve Bank and having that mandate really really amazing, and everybody around the world's benefited from that. And because it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, if everybody knows that if we go above that target, then interest rates will go up. People go, oh, look, maybe I won't put my prices up so much because it will lead to higher interest rates. Yeah.
Yep. So, of all the properties you brought over the years, did you buy many or any that were negative cash flow?
So look, we let's just talk about what we've got, right? So I think we've got 4 businesses. They're all named Vosper, and together those businesses house a lot of people, right? So there's a lot of assets there. Those assets, they're expensive, right? Houses are expensive. And if you want to house somebody, you got to spend a lot of money up front in order to give them the land and buildings that they need to actually live their life, right? So each night, look, Vicky and I, the businesses that hold these properties, we probably house about 75 people, right? So that's a lot of people that call home to one of our properties. So what do we look for when we're buying these properties? Well, look, let's talk about some of them, right? One of them is a remand facility, right? It's a building which houses young people in need who've returned, who can't live with their families, but they'll live with carers in this really amazing environment, in Otamoto, right? What an unusual thing to do, but I'll tell you that is a big benefit for the community as a whole. These kids change and they do good things because of this environment. And if I could, I'd make 10 more of them. They've been so successful. It's a different way of making money, right? So what you do is you take the same property that you might have rented out for X amount, and you go, well, if with a different use of it, well, we can actually rent it out for a different amount, and have a longer stay of tenancy and have a lot less hassles, that sort of thing. That's one example.
And I'm assuming the rent would be quite secure.
Yeah, absolutely. I cannot speak highly enough. Some of the organisations we deal with, Te Tuinga Whānau Support Services Trust, absolutely, they are doing great things in Tauranga, and I say if you ever have any involvement with them, you'll see it. They're just brilliant people. So that's one of the properties. The reason I say this is you got to think a bit wider than what's the rent on it. You've got to go, what's another way to make money off that, and who else might see benefit in this? Look, we go to another one, which is a backpackers accommodation that we've got. Look, we're using the McDonald's model. You know what I mean when I say McDonald's model? The
Location.
Yeah, look, it's like the way McDonald's works is that you go, I want to be a McDonald's franchise owner. That's great. Well, you're gonna run the business, but McDonald's corporate is going to own the property. And they know that that's actually where the value is, and the property is going to be paid off by the hard work and the work done in selling those hamburgers on top. They end up with the real asset, which is the property itself. So look, you've just got to find a way to pay for the land, right? So the asset's underneath, and you've got to find a good way to pay for it. So yeah, look, the easy way is to rent it out to somebody. But you can also sell hamburgers or
you're
car yards.
Essentially doing the exact same thing.
Same thing, right? Yep. And if you can do the stuff and also benefit the community, then that is some good work, and that's how we see it. We say if you agree that there's an accommodation shortage and we're providing accommodation, we're doing good work. We're not greedy landlords. We're actually helping, not hindering.
Most definitely.
Yep.
I would suggest if people are more concerned about the greedy landlord aspect, you need to kind of look into themselves and be like, actually, there's got an issue here and we're fulfilling this huge void. If you understand where I'm coming from.
Look, all I have to do is listen to Talkback Radio, and the word greedy, whenever they talk about landlords is only, 1 or 2 calls away. It's a phenomenal idea. Because, and I'll go back to the economics we talked about at the start, which is there's 2 sides to it. There's supply and demand, right? One of them is supplying the accommodation. The other one is providing the demand. So if you are really upset that there's not enough houses to rent, or that greedy landlords are putting the rent up, then you need to ask, hey, am I contributing to this equation in a positive way or a negative way? And if you're part of demand, unfortunately, mate, you are the bad side. You're actually making things worse. And for those incredible people who take their $1 million assets and they lend them out to people for bugger all money each week, they are the heroes of this world, and we need more of them. We need to encourage them to do that because the supply of rental accommodation in Tauranga is depressingly, stressfully low. I talked to Jason about it earlier. I checked this morning, 170 rentals available on TradeMe for a population of 120, 130,000. We're more than half the people in Tauranga rent. That is absurd. And as we come into summer, Airbnbs will start. They'll start turning into Airbnbs and a few other things. I just feel for those people who rent. Absolutely.
And this is the thing, right? If you don't have a deposit and you've got no ways of getting a deposit, you won't be a homeowner. So you need people to selflessly buy these properties. And yes, there's a win for them. There's got to be a win for them. They're taking risk. But a lot of people are buying these properties, especially now that interest is not deductible. They're running these properties as a loss. So they're a major savings account. So market rent's market rent. You might move into this property and the owner of the property may be topping it up $100 a week to keep you in that house. So are they greedy to say, I'm not going out to dinner this Friday to put $100 into a house that you house, that yes, they'll get a win in it in the long term, but that's stopping them from going and getting KFC or taking their kids out to CBK for dinner or whatever it might be.
Look, you're right. You're right. Gabriel, I'll give you an investment opportunity, right? Well, look, you take $200,000. Actually, I'm wrong. $400,000 of your hard-earned money, $400,000 of real cash money, and you're going to put this into an investment, right? We're going to lend you $600,000 at what are we up to now? 5-6%, right? You're then going to get rent for that of about $500-600 a week. There's no capital gains. It'll actually go down in value over the next 12 months, and you're going to have to top it up by about $300 or $400 a month. Right, but the good news is the people in there are going to use the house. You'll have no rights to kick them out if they wreck it. But are you in?
Not really.
Of course, it's absurd, right? It's absurd, and that's where we're up to at the moment. Where I go, who the hell wants to provide rental accommodation today? And when you add to that the part that Jason and I talked about earlier, non-deductibility of interest, which every other business in the history of New Zealand has been able to do. But somehow we don't see landlords as businesses. Like apparently we just provide that accommodation for
the love, yeah.
For love, yeah.
And it's the biggest debt holding. The average business might have 300, 400, 500,000. You go and borrow $1 million to house one family. And the interesting thing is too, the only way we're going to get more houses is to make more land available. However, our government is not releasing the land as far as titles. So, yeah, everyone goes, yeah, there's no more land. There's actually quite a lot of land if you start driving outside of cities, but they're not releasing titles. So they can release titles. That's what happened in Christchurch. It fell over. They opened it and they kept inflation flat for almost 10 years. It's going now because it's getting towards the end of it, but it sat flat for a very long time. And then the other side of it is the only way you can offer more housing is by building more. And then you've got Housing New Zealand or Jacinda's government buy an existing stock. And Jacinda came along and said, the problem with New Zealand is mum and dad investors, the people that have one home and they're trying to buy another one as an investment, where our own government is outbidding those same people trying to get a head start in the economy to buy houses to put other people in, but they're not supplying anything. So they're taking from the pool of first home buyers themselves and they got more money than anyone.
Look, I don't have a problem with Jacinda as long as she doesn't say anything or do anything. But apart from that, I couldn't agree more. I mean, look, if you're trying to put rents up, just add a tax to it, right? That's what the non-deductibility of interest is. It's just a tax. If you want less homes, just make it unattractive to buy them. Lots of compliance costs and things of that nature. And it's just I just get really upset at ideologies because this one is just a rotten one, and the people who pay the price, it's not the greedy landlord, it's not me, it's the poor bloody renter who in the first instance can't find a place, and in the second instance has to pay way more than they would have. Look, if you want to piss me off, right? Say throw it to me. double the number of rentals in Tauranga, right? If you do that, that will have a serious effect on rental prices. They will go down, right? But that's not how it's working. What happens is there are less and less people who are willing to give their $1 million asset to somebody for a few $100s a week. So let me just give you one more example, right? Okay, let's say you've got $1 million. Well, look, why don't you just buy a Ferrari, right? You can buy a beautiful Ferrari for $1 million. You can rent that out for about $4,000 a day, right? So the $1 million house, about $65, maybe $85 a day. The $1 million Ferrari, about $4,000 a day. You should get the Ferrari.
If someone offered me a Riviera, 50-foot Riviera, sitting in the harbour tomorrow for $500 a week, it'd be done. It'd be a done deal.
Of course.
We'd be off on it tonight, boys. You know? But you can't do that with your house.
You can't. It's out of whack. And look, and the last point I'll make on this, guys, so I just don't want to make it political, but interest deductibility is a problem when interest rates is 2.7%. Interest deductibility or non-deductibility of interest is an unbelievable problem when interest rates are 5, 6, and 7%. It makes the business absurd. And welcome to New Zealand 2022.
There's a really interesting. There's a guy who's popped up recently. You might have seen him keeping the change. I think his name's Luke.
I love him.
I love him too. He's fucking blunt. He throws his marker at the camera. He does all sorts of stuff. However, he's someone who's earning really good money. He tells us that he's in the upper percentile of earning, over $400K a year, all this sort of stuff, and he's dead set against buying a home. And I think a lot of his thoughts in that are flawed. And he forgets the point. He's going, I'm not going to buy a home. I'm going to buy some shares. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Forgetting the fact that if your rent's $700 this year, next year it's probably going to be $750. The year after that it's going to be $800. The year after that it's going to be $900. When you buy a house right now, these may be the highest rates we see in a very, very, very long time. It's going to go up maybe another 1%. Cool, whatever, but that's in the next 10-year period. They're going to sit at these sort of rates. If you buy a house, you've now guaranteed your rent for the next 30 years to stay within a certain bracket, not following the inflation of another 100, another 100, another 100.
You're onto it. There's heaps of good reasons, right? So number one is inflation dissolves debt, right? So the debt that you get, that was always held in the year value of the dollar value of the year that you borrowed it. So imagine if you borrowed $100,000 in 1970, well, that would have been a lot of debt. But today, $100,000 is barely anything. So inflation, if you can hold on, is incredibly powerful at paying off debt, which is great. The other point. Sorry, what was the other point you made? There was I'm just trying to remember. Sorry.
What did I say? So. The fact that your rent just stays the same, which is essentially what
the rent over time goes up as well. So if you can imagine, what did rent cost in 1985? I can tell you it's not $640 a week, which is the current average of Tauranga rent now, the highest in New Zealand. It wasn't that, so that goes up over time as well. And then of course you will theoretically get those capital gains too. So there's lots of good reasons to buy it, and of course the reason I'm in property over shares is because of this beautiful thing called leverage. I can take other people's money and I can take typically 5 times what I would have otherwise, and I can invest 5 times as much as I would at one to one in shares, 5 to 1 on properties.
Yeah, I think that's what people fall short of, right? They go, all right, if I put it in my shares account and we have a really good year, I'll earn 10%, and house prices only go up 7% per annum. Forgetting the fact that if your house was $500,000 and put $100,000 in, you're not getting 7% on your $100,000, you're getting 7% on your $500,000.
Yeah, and look, in simple terms, if you could get 10 to 1 leverage, right, your house at 10 to 1, goes up by 10%. It doubles your money on your deposit, whereas the same was actually literally only 10% on shares. So yeah, it's a big deal. Yeah,
100%.
So, have you ever stumbled across? You always hear about stories where people get burned and landlords get burned. Like I heard a story in the USA, somebody went away for a holiday and they had a squatter and they couldn't get the squatter out. Have you ever been burned or had a situation where you've been made you question what you do?
Yeah, of course. You love the idea that all tenants are angels and they will respect the home and they'll treat it like their own. Look, we've got some spectacular tenants who I just love to bits because they just treat the home like it's their own, and that's my ultimate. But look, one of them is an Airbnb, right? Airbnb. You might have heard about the party the other night because it was ridiculous. It sounds like these people rented the place out for a couple of nights. On night 2, they invited 50 odd people, 50 teenagers to the home, and that is the risk, right? And my mum's partner Graham, he's in property as well. He said to me, Kirk, that's why you don't have it in the bank, right? Because there's no risk in the bank, but you get paid a bit more because you're taking on those risks. And the key is to actually have quite a high stress tolerance, and I think that's important. But Airbnb, very, very good. They have really good insurance cover, and they have really good processes that mean that when you do have an incident, they look after you really well because they want to keep us there. We're important. We're the guys that provide the properties that
without
they need.
them, you've got no business.
Get onto it.
Yeah.
Speaking of the Airbnb, right? So Airbnb becomes a business in its own because if you earn a certain amount, you've got to GST register it, so that can burn you. Because if you've got an Airbnb and you can, for example, rent $2,000 a year, a week over a year, you break the 65K. Now you've got to be GST registered. Now if you're to sell that home speculatively, now you've got to pay GST back when you sell your home. So it becomes a big hit. Correct?
There's lots of math to do, you're right.
Yeah, there's a lot of math, right? So everyone goes, oh, this is amazing and it's so easy and it's so profitable and all the rest of it. But speculation in NZ is controlled so closely, and you've really got to watch your numbers with bright line tests and everything else. But the interest deductibility, there are a couple of hacks, right? So you can buy a brand new house today.
That'll do it.
And you'll get 20 years of interest deductibility. And like we've done ourselves, we bought a house 2 years ago, paid a 5% deposit on it. We've now drawn down on 2 of these properties. They'll be finished around January. But the market's moved probably 30% and we'll do okay out of those. And in that, now we'll actually be able to, they'll be cash flow positive-ish. They would have been cash flow positive, but interest rates moved a few points. But, they'll work out okay. They're an amazing savings account. But there's some other hacks, right? So if you buy existing, and you can do Housing New Zealand, so you provide housing for people that otherwise cannot find homes, and you can get into that. There's still deductibility, correct?
There is, yeah. So if you provide, I believe we call it transitional housing with a registered community housing provider, then yes, you can deduct that interest. Good idea, but jeepers, this isn't fair. Why is it that I bought a house 4 years ago? I helped people to find accommodation, and I now can't run my business as well as somebody else who's just bought it in the last year. It's bizarre. It's bad policy, bad tax. Yeah.
But from anyone, I mean, hopefully there's a government change and it might be all smoke and mirrors, but they're saying they might unwind some of this stuff, so there might be potential, which would, if that's the case, if National gets in and they offer interest deductibility again, the housing market will run, people, because now there'd be a whole lot of people that actually want to buy a house again because it makes a whole lot more sense.
Yeah, it almost could be a problem for me, eh? Like maybe my house prices will go down. Maybe I'll have a problem because there'll be a whole lot of rentals come on the market and rents might go down. What a disaster.
What would you like to change?
Look. I watch again. I love a few TikToks, right? And because the algorithm sends me stuff that I know I like. So you see what's happening in America. You see these guys that buy these big unit blocks, and they can, they can negatively gear them, and they can take the interest in the losses and apply them to their own personal income. They can, they can add a depreciation to it. They can. Oh, what else can they do? They can certainly deduct interest. That's a no-brainer. Like that's
everything we had, but it's been withered away over the last 10 years.
Everything we had, right? And if you look at the prices of these properties in America, you go, whoa, hold on, what do you mean $150,000 for a very beautiful home, right? Well, that's the reality. You want to make it easy for people to create these homes and to provide these homes, and certainly, come on, like taxing people. Like, what do you think a landlord's going to do? He's going to go, oh yeah, here we go, here's the new tax, you got me. Or do you think they're going to go, actually, well, we're going to pass on those costs so that the whole thing works out profitable? Because if it doesn't, then we sell, and that provides zero accommodation for anybody.
That's an interesting fact, right? So Dubai has become this hot place in the world because it's a tax-free nation. So you've got people that are in shares, crypto, all sorts of stuff all around the globe that are moving to, say, Dubai. And if you live in Dubai for 5 years and hold your assets there, you can move back into any country tax-free. So if I live here and it's cost me 40% tax on the dollar, and I need to cash out $5 million worth of crypto because I did really well out of trading or shares or whatever it might be, I can move to Dubai, spend that dollar tax-free, live there for a few years, and now I can bring my money back into another nation. You know, that all they're doing with governance is pushing people out. We're hearing about brain drains and stuff like that. People going to Australia, the cost of living, everything we just talked about. Housing has gone up massively over the last few years because every time they put a loophole or another roadblock in front of business, the cost goes up. And all we're seeing is massive amounts of inflation because of roadblocks, which is governance. And the best thing all you politicians can do is step out of the fucking way and let people run their own businesses.
Look, that's in a nutshell. Right? Look, I pride myself on being positive, right? But gee, because this makes me angry. And yes, if the banks and the politicians could just get out of the way, make it easy for us to get what we need, we can actually do some awesome stuff. We can house people, and we can actually create businesses. We can create production, and we can all get wealthier. Including jobs and all of the other things that are great. Just get the hell out of the way.
One
You're
thing
right, Jason.
that I don't understand, and for example, somebody's knowledge is not GST. If you get what I mean?
Yep.
You are not a product. You should not be a GST. If you get what I mean?
Yeah. My time is GST.
Yeah.
Cost you $100 to take this conversation. If we were charging this out right now, we'd pay GST on it. Why is the government having 15% of this conversation?
Oh, GST, guys, is a beautiful tax. It makes about $30 billion a year that it brings in for the government. It's 15%. Started off at 10. Of course, nobody was ever going to increase it, but 15%, 12.5%, then 15%. And the thing about GST is that it's unavoidable. If you want to buy something, you gotta pay it.
But if it's a product, I can understand it. This bottle of beer, okay, GST is product, but your own knowledge and you're not a product, and you're getting GST, then you're getting taxed on top of that. It's a little bit double dipping.
Look, we can talk about this all day.
Yeah.
You did a 4-hour
just
podcast.
find it real interesting.
But tax policy is insane, right? So, look, if I want you to stop smoking, what I'll do is I'll increase the excise tax on smoking, or if I want you to stop drinking, I'll increase it because we know that changes people's behaviour, right?
Yeah.
But why the hell do we charge? Why do we tax people's income, right? Why do we make it a disincentive to actually be more productive? It's a bizarre thing that we do, and there's better ways. And I wish we would come up with
same thing with secondary tax.
I think.
If somebody's wanting to work,
No, you carry on. No, I'm not angry at you. I'm just angry about fucking what's happening in the world.
I wanted to talk about happiness and appreciation and positivity, guys, and now we're talking about
But obviously it's got to have a little bit of stuff. But I think if obviously you've worked hard, okay, and for somebody trying to get ahead, they might not be able to get one full-time job to get ahead. They might be able to get 2 part-time jobs. But for one of the jobs, they're going to be getting taxed a secondary tax rate, which does not make sense when they're trying to work hard to get ahead.
Yeah, I love you, but that's a really common misconception, right? So the secondary tax rate's not there to get you; it's there to make sure that you don't get got. So why they do a secondary tax rate is because they don't know how much money you're earning from the other place. So if you don't have the whole picture, they go, look, let's just take more than we should, and you'll get it all back at the end of the year. If you don't do that, then it's far worse. If they undertax you, you get to the end of the financial year, and here's the bill. That is just way worse. So no, you don't get charged more for a second job. You go get stuck and get that second job, and it will all work itself out.
So it just works out the other end.
It does work out the other end, and that falls into the mentality of, I earn X and I get 28 cents on the dollar. I don't want to earn more because I'll pay 33 cents on the dollar. and the tax brackets are after the fact. So your first $15,000, you'll be taxed this, you'll then be taxed that, and you'll be then taxed this. And a whole lot of people are like, there's no point me working an extra day a week because I'll have less money. Bullshit.
We have a marginal tax system, right? So yes, your first I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head. $19,000 is charged at is taxed at this, and then the next bracket is taxed at this. But no, you should never earn more and then get
You'll never go backwards for working more.
No.
On an hourly wage. On an hourly wage business.
My personal
all the
opinion, if you earn 100,000, I earn $1 million, right? And the tax rate's 30%. Well, you pay $30,000 in tax. I pay $300,000 in tax. I pay 10 times as much tax as you. What the hell is wrong with that? That seems like a reasonable deal. Why do we have to step it up 10 more times to say we need to take more of that? I think a percentage is a reasonable way to go. And I'll tell you this, I don't know if you agree, Jason and Gabriel, but if you let me keep more of that money, I can do more amazing things, right?
It's a conversation we had earlier, right? It's a lot of people, I've had this argument with a few people, and they're like, oh, you're earning too much income. Why am I earning too much income? Well, that income should be dispersed other ways. Okay, so what are you doing with your income? Well, I'm earning enough for me. So you're earning enough money for yourself only. What are you doing for charity? Who else are you supporting? Your parents? Who else are you supporting in your life? No. I'm selfish. I just want to earn enough for myself. Well, get yourself out of fucking bed, work harder, support your parents, support charities, and support other people, because no one else that's sitting there in bed right now is doing that. But everyone that I know who is doing okay gives to charity.
Look, I think what's so interesting about that is actually the other common myth, right? The common myth is that if you have, then I miss out, right? It's not a zero-sum game. I talked about crypto before and Forex. That's a zero-sum game. If I make $1, you lose $1. That is not how a Western economy works. The Western economy works as if you borrow money, you're creating new money. If you create $1 worth of production out of it, we all win, right? It is not a zero-sum game. You can be a billionaire, I can be a billionaire, we can both be billionaires, and we can be happy. And the world needs to understand that, because to say I'm a victim because of your success, you could not be more wrong. Yes. You have opportunities because of my success. You have opportunities because of other people's success. Jobs are created when people do stuff. And again, it goes back. If you're on the demand side, you're on the downside. If you're on the supply side, you're actually on the positive side of the equation. If you're creating jobs, you're on the positive side. If you're taking jobs, you're on the negative side. That's how it works for the entire economy. Get off your ass and do something. Come on, guys, and let's respect those that do, because they are the champions of the world. They should be they should be the ones that we go, you are the magic. We want more.
I've always had the motto, hard work pays off. It's always been true. You've obviously got to work smart, but hard work does pay off.
Look, hard work is an interesting idea.
Yes.
Because I think if you monitor my day, I don't think you'll think I'm working particularly hard. But if you come into my brain, you're going to have a really stressful day, because my brain is working really hard, figuring out problem solving, coming up with solutions, coming up with ideas, and those together, they make things happen.
Well, I'm sure you probably actually go through and you're saying, actually, we've got this and I've come up with this solution, but in order to come up with that solution, I've come up with 10 other possibilities of what could happen, and if they happened, what would happen if that happened. And then you go through and you pick the right solution for that current situation and you apply it.
Look, you're right. Look, all the time, it's don't get emotionally attached to anything. Anything's on the table. Let's consider it, and always take the opportunities. Right? It doesn't matter whom it is. If it's your mate who's got access to some funds, or if you're there's a new banking deal come out, or if there's a different way of structuring something. Yeah, you should do it, right? But you should do it, and you should do it in a way that's ethical and that gets the outcome, and that puts you at the least risk. Yeah.
So when did you start to kind of have that self-belief? Was it when you started the relationship with Vicky, or was it before then?
Look, I think if you had a vote, back at high school, who was going to make some dollars, I think I would have been number one. So yeah, I don't know. I I don't know how annoying I was, but there was definitely an air of like, oh, that guy, that's the guy who knows money, he knows economy, he knows, he gets excited about stuff. I actually won some awards. I think I was the Tauranga Young Person of the Year in 1999, and I got a distinction in the Cambridge Entrepreneurship exam in that same year. I got a scholarship, and we also won the what do they call it? The Young Entrepreneurs. I think we won the local Young Entrepreneurs scheme. Really interesting year for me. It was a really
big growth year,
right? Huge growth year. That together with some relationship problems with friends and things. Boy, I went from being a kid to an adult in 12 months. And I'd say at the time I thought this is really bad, and I'd say that's the most important year I've had so far. Yeah,
I would have taught you a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, the thing is, like, if we go back to the hard work thing, right? Everyone assumes hard work is they show up for 70, 80, 90 hours a week. That's not hard work. They say the success of a man is the ability to have a hard conversation time and time again. If you come to me with a question and go, oh, fuck, no, it's outside of my pay grade, I'm not interested, cool, that's where you lie. But if you go, okay, cool, I don't like, that was a hard conversation, but how can I solve this? And you find a way to solve it, that's where success and personal growth happens. So that's really probably what hard work looks like. It doesn't always have to be hard labour. It's what are you willing to accomplish and overcome from a mindset perspective to move forward.
If you and I went to, or the three of us, let's say we went to the pub quiz last night, right? We don't know what the questions are going to be. Right? It's simple as that. We don't know what the questions are going to be, but if we have a really wide knowledge and some logic and some common sense, we can make a bloody good guess of the ones we don't know, and the ones that we do know, we can probably put the answer down. And I think that's the key, right? So Kirk, how do you know what you're talking about? Well, because I read every day, because I talk to people who are smart. I spend time with people who have got good ideas and have got experience. And when you put all that together, you become, a bit of a master at the process. And that's where we sit today.
I'm just going to stop you there. I think this podcast might run for a few more minutes. Should we do a quick piss break? That's a yes. So this is the longest podcast we've done today. So obviously we're getting some fucking bangers. But yeah,
two-parter. Yeah,
it's the first time I've had to take a pee break. I've got a pretty good bladder, but I was like, you know what, we're gonna have to do a runners here. So we're back. How good? And
so obviously we've heard a lot with regards to your thought process and your patterns of success, but have you had any failures along the way that you'd like to share?
Oh, geez, I've had some failures. If you don't, I had this amazing conversation with the study that was done about people who really struggle in real life are the ones who got those A pluses through school and university. So they love that environment, right? Because they're not prepared for failure. But if you're just scraping by each time, you're like, whoa, actually, I know what failure feels like. I better make sure I do enough to get by. We actually want to create people who are quite comfortable with a few fails, and those people who have described, they often come up short because they don't want to risk it because they're not prepared to lose. I'm prepared to lose. I know, Jason, you're prepared to lose. It's really important, and I've lost a lot of time. So look, I'll take you back to a couple of stories really quickly. The first one was I expected by 21 I should have been worth about 3 or 4 million, right? And the reason for that is we created at university this product which glows in the dark. So if you can imagine the old kids stars and moons on the sky, so they glow for about they go for about 20 minutes, and then it's a bit of a thrill, but they're done. So we found this technology which was that it glowed for 20 to 22 hours at a time, and it glowed 24 times brighter. So if you can imagine that, it's like, whoa, holy macaroni! That's really bright, it's really long, and you can do some cool stuff with that. And that was in solving a problem. And the problem was people can't find the light switch in the dark, particularly at hotels and things of that nature. So put the two together. We made a product which was, you stick it above the light switch and it helps you to find the light switch in the dark all night, because it goes for 20, 22, 24 hours, and it's really bright and it's a blue color, and it was just awesome, right? So I thought, wow, geez, Kirk, you nailed it. This is going to be easy peasy. I don't know why everybody thought it was going to be so hard to be a millionaire. 21, yeah, that seems about right.
It's kind of like the pool noodle idea.
It's not far off, right? Yeah. It's a good idea. If you agree that sometimes people struggle to find the light switch in the dark, this is a solution.
Good, simple, clean idea.
But wait, there's more. So, additional products. We came up with these things called, we call them key pairs. So you'd actually the first one was finding the lock in the dark. So if you were looking for a lock, at the back door or whatever, there was one that we put over the lock, and it pointed to where the lock was, and you could put the key in. And then we found these things, created these things called key pairs. So if the lock had a heart on it and your key had a heart on it, and they both glowed, then you could find the right key for the right lock, even in the dark, right? So really cool. Packaged them, barcodes. This is in the days before the internet was really super duper. There was this little website that I used called Alibaba. You heard of that one? Yeah. Nobody heard of it back then. Tiny. And we found a manufacturer and all of the exciting pieces that go with that, right? So look, I've got these products, and it's like, okay, Kirk, what are you going to do now? You're going to market them? Yep. Right, what's the best thing you can imagine? Well, what about like the American Home Shopping Network, where they do those infomercials and they go, look, here's this and here's this. Oh, look, that's amazing. Ring now and you can buy them. Well, get this. I sent 3 packet of each one through to the American Home Shopping Television Network, and they came back and said, we love them. Let's do it, right? Oh, my God. I was like, well, look, I didn't know. All I had to do was send a bloody package to America, to Florida, and it was all on. And they said, look, one more thing, Kirk. Look, we love the idea that you're a young entrepreneur from New Zealand, and we think that if you were to come across to Florida and come on to the Home Shopping Network live and sell these, then we think that you'd really get stuck in, and you'd sell a lot of them, and we can do some really amazing deals. And I was like. And I wussed out. It was stupid. I'm not a shy guy, right? I just took the easy option because they gave me an alternative, and the alternative was we can get a paid guest on. They can represent you, and you won't need to come across. They'll do all of the work for you. And I just made the wrong decision. I went with the paid guest. So we get to the most exciting time, 21, 22 years old. It's now, I'm watching it through the internet. I'm watching this live broadcast of the Home Shopping Network going out all across America, on their cable TV, and on it comes Night Glows, they were called. And I just thought, wow, what a thrill this is. And then they turned off the lights live on TV, and the camera couldn't pick up the glow, right? So it was... Yeah, okay. Chills went up my spine, and I just went...
So the cameras weren't up to the quality?
It's not about the cameras, it's about the failure to check whether that was the case or not, alternatives around B-roll footage or whatever, but ultimately you couldn't see the glow, right? And it was just a disaster, such a disaster. So I went from being so excited, assuming that everything was the easy pie, to going actually...
Pit in the stomach.
Yeah, pit in the stomach of just like, I've just failed. I failed so hard. I still feel the same feelings now when I think of it. I just go, what a wasted opportunity. If only I'd taken the trip and I'd gone there, then I could have even joked it off or something. Who knows? But
yes.
the likelihood is it wouldn't have resulted in the way it did. So, look,
because obviously they'd need charge for a certain amount of time initially.
No, it's not about the charge. It's about the camera. So they put out quite a low sort of output of light, and the camera needs to have it set in a way that sucks it in.
If we turn the camera on right now, and we've just got these halogens, you'll see a flicker all the way through the footage. We've seen that. You'll see that on some of our YouTube stuff.
It's not a failure of the product; it's a failure of the technology.
Yeah. So you'll see YouTube and stuff like, man, I wish this color would come across on this car. Like, you've got to see the fleck in it, and you're like, it's a black car, and they're like, no, it's green. You just can't see it. Like, cameras do not pick up everything. So yeah, that's an interesting lesson. And I also like that lesson years ago when I did a short stint, 4 months in Aussie with my ex-wife. That one keeps coming up, but we did a bit of a period there, and there was an opportunity. They said to come back and work for arguably the best truck brand in NZ. And it was a company that I would have probably really enjoyed to work for. And I was talking to them at a conference because I was working for that brand in Australia. And they said, actually, the sales manager is going to be in Melbourne. Why don't you fly down from Sydney and see him? There might be some opportunity in the future. And I was like, well, I'm not going to spend my own money to fly down for opportunity in the future because I need to move back now. And as I got back, the local salesman was really ill and he ended up passing away. And that opportunity was there right for the picking, and I didn't hop on the plane and fly down to take that role at the time.
That's what the studies say. The studies say that when you're lying on your deathbed at 94, you don't think back to the dumb things you did. You think back to the opportunities you didn't take, and that's I tell you now, when I'm 94, that's still going to be something I regret. It was so dumb. Yeah. Look, I'm a salesman through and through, right? Why did I not do it?
You didn't back yourself really in that corner, yeah.
I just wussed out, and it's I'm embarrassed by it because and I paid the price, right? So be it.
Yeah.
But if you think that's bad.
Well, while we were on that, we actually had a guest here who we didn't launch because we didn't want to project her on the wrong light, but she had a similar opportunity that didn't work out well, and there's almost some PTSD there to some degree because she did have a business that was going really well and subsequently failed, and she's moved on doing different things now.
Because you're thinking
so
yourself,
much hurt still
Kirk,
there.
We're in night clothes. They sound like a great idea, right? Where are they? Right?
Yeah.
I threw the towel and I said, bugger it, I'm out. Right? If I can be given the greatest opportunity I could possibly imagine, and I failed on it, well, let's do something else. And that's interesting. When you're dealing with American companies, you got to deal with foreign exchange. I learned that, and that's where we went.
And interestingly enough, too, like one of my mates owns Biomag and stuff like that. As seen on TV, Biomag, his photo of his car is sitting there in my office, and he's got about 5 or 6 businesses that were the as seen on TV stuff, and he doesn't want for anything. So you can get onto that percentage of those people that for some reason are awake at 2 o'clock in the morning, they're bored and they're lonely and they want to talk to someone on the phone and buy something. They don't even know what it costs. What a market.
Look, you're crazy. But look, let me tell you, you asked me what your fails, right? We could. This is a podcast in itself, but there's this thing called Bitcoin. Have you guys heard of that? It's Bitcoin.
No, yeah, I've heard of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so you sold it. Yeah. You should have never sold it.
A while back, I earned commissions through Forex Broker Guy, the foreign exchange website that we had. And one of them gave this new way of paying the commissions out, right? In this thing called Bitcoin. I was like, oh, Bitcoin.
Oh, no.
Well, that's interesting. I think I've heard of that. Okay, I'll take it in Bitcoin this time. So what I did was I had to do a little bit of reading about it, and I was like, okay, well, it doesn't sound too complicated. So I've got to download like a wallet app, and then I've got to put in this really long number, and then it will transfer the Bitcoin across to this wallet. So if you guys are, I don't know if you're guessing what happens next.
How many Bitcoin were you paid?
I believe it was about 2.5, right? I put a number in wrong or whatever it is. I don't know what
seed phrase is wrong.
Yeah, and gone forever. Never seen it again. So,
what was the guy though? There was a guy who actually had billions,
like 100 Bitcoin. I think the guy who went looking for the dump through the dump. That guy?
Yeah, that guy. So you never even got the Bitcoin to begin with?
No, I kept waiting for it to show up in this wallet, but it just never showed up. But at the time, I think it was about $2,000 or something, $2,500. So I was pissed off, but it wasn't the end of the world.
That could be on the scene.
Unless I still had the Bitcoin, 12 months ago, and then it would have been the end of the world.
Would have been about 100.
So with doing that,
200,000.
200,000.
With doing them now, there's copy buttons on the site you're taking it from, and where you're taking it to, like paste buttons. So you go copy, paste. You can go in there, check the front 3, the back 3 numbers, whatever it might be. You can check the whole thing if you want to, and then you know it's happening. And your transfers happen pretty quickly. But yeah, if you have one digit wrong, you'll never see it again.
You've got to remember this is before Bitcoin was. If I said to you, Bitcoin, you'd go, what the hell's that? It's obvious now, but boy, at the time,
this would have been very early when it was 2000.
I was in the foreign exchange business, right? That is foreign exchange. It's a way of paying, and
it's a great way of doing it.
It's a great. It was a really good way. It's like I talked about how much I hate cryptos before, but one of the only things I can see, I can see 2 or 3 values in it. Number one is if I take my New Zealand dollars, turn it into Bitcoin, send the Bitcoin to Jason in Japan. Jason then takes those Bitcoins, turns it back into yen. Well, that is really cool. That's decentralized money transfer, right? That is genuinely of value, but also make sure you write the code down right, Jason, if I send it to you.
and your seed phrase, because you might be able to log in, but if it asks you for your seed phrase, which is 10 words, and you can't get in, latest money. And I've got mates that have got guaranteed 5 figures, maybe not 6 figures, but they've got definitely 5 figures that can't find their money. Yeah. And I've also had mates that have put like $70,000 into something like Safe Moon, thinking it was going to be the next big thing that turned into $10,000. But you only ever invest what you're willing to risk, and the only other time that you potentially invest more, in my opinion, is property, because it's such a safe bet. You can add value to it. You can renovate it. You can buy a house today for $500,000. You can put a new bathroom and a kitchen in it. You give it a lick of the paint, and it might be $600,000. Now you've got that flipping type market, but you can still hold it, and that might increase your rent. Your rent might be $400, now it's $500 a week. There's ways of adding value. You might buy a house that's 2 bedroom, you add 3 bedrooms. Property fucking works.
Look, I think that's a really good point. The point I'd make here is that zero-sum games are the TAB, and anything that actually creates production and value is really investing, and I would say housing fits that, and I would say shares fit that as well, right? So if you're providing capital for businesses that create production and employ people, you're doing some good work.
So if you were new into shares, how would you kind of get into it? Would you research, or what would you do?
Look, this is relatively simple. So you don't think about it, right? So you just need to go, the more companies or more pieces of companies I own, the better, the less
less risk.
The less risk, you're diversifying. So if that's the case, then buy the whole lot. So buy yourself an index fund or an ETF, which is an exchange traded fund, and that is the simple way to do it. Believe me, if we compare the funds that are actively managed, they tend to do worse than the ETFs or the index funds, which just take an average of everybody. So I do that with dollar cost averaging. That's where you put in at set intervals X amount of money. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, and the average is all good. You take some dividends, and guess what you do with those? You reinvest them, and over time you will create yourself a pretty cool piece of companies. If you can't buy the whole company, buy a little piece of it, right?
And this is what people forget too, right? Too many people want to speculate. So buying Bitcoin, buying SafeMoon, buying Solana, any of that stuff is speculation. None of us know where it's going to be tomorrow. However, if you buy a share, and look, I'm okay with crypto, and like Kirk, I'm fine with it. I'm good with it. But when you buy a share, you can actually, it's a publicly listed business, so you can look at their financials, you can look at the directors, you can say, actually, Warren Buffett just invested in this business. He's buying it for a reason. Maybe I should get into it. Warren Buffett didn't buy anything for the last 2-3 years because it was all overcooked. Right now, they're flat out buying.
Yep.
Because there's opportunity. And people go, it's the same with KiwiSaver and stuff like that. Oh, I must get out of my high risk fund right now. When do you go shopping at Briscoe's? I go shopping at Briscoe's when it's 70% off. Why the fuck won't you buy shares at 70% off? Because that's it. If you buy your KiwiSaver, might go up to $3 per, like it's always a share of that index fund essentially. And if that drops back to $1.50, every dollar you're putting in there is amplified. So when the market swings back, your growth will grow immensely.
You speak the truth, man. It was exactly right. If Air New Zealand has a terrible earnings report, which it did, is it still the same company as it was 2 days ago? Yes. Is it now 20% cheaper? Yes. Okay, I'll have a bit of that, please. Absolutely. Once again, if you can't buy the whole thing, buy a little bit of it. And look, I'll give you guys ready for one more big piece of advice. I think this is just the best, right? If you ever get the chance to Google anything, look up leveraged buyout. Leveraged buyout, right? I think it's probably made more of the wealthy people in the world than anything else I can imagine, right? And here it is in a nutshell. It's you take the money that you've got and you combine that with the money of the asset that you want to buy what they've got. You take your income plus their income, and together you imagine a beautiful future where you own everything. You then tell the lender about that.
Forecasted.
And they then give you the money. And that is how you get rich. And it's whether it's through property, which I just described earlier, or whether it's through buying WIC calls and businesses like Graham Hart's done. Leveraged buyout, again, just read about it, is the magic 2 words that you need to understand how the world works.
I've physically done that in the last week.
Not
myself, I haven't personally done something, but I've done the forecast for a client. So I'm in transport, right? Here's some simple math. A business has 3 trucks. If we say every truck was earning $50,000 a month, then we know it's doing $150,000 a month. If the other business has got 2 trucks and he's earning $25,000, he's only doing $50,000 a month, which is way down on the other business. But if he was to buy this other business, the trucks are doing $50,000 and the work's there, he can bring those trucks up to those rates. Therefore, the whole profitability of the whole thing blows up. So the cost of lending and everything just withers away because now he's got a really profitable business, assuming it's run the same way as the person they buy it from.
It's just like when you play Monopoly and you instinctively understand what's going on, what you need to do and how to benefit. Leverage buyout, just because we give it a fancy name, you actually understand what it is. It's let's take what we've got, let's take what we could have if we owned that as well. Let's take all the income and let's hold hands and imagine a beautiful future. Well, you can own the world doing that.
The important thing to remember too is everyone just goes to ANZ and they get a decline and they say it's over. But there's other ways of funding. Like someone might come to me and say, hey, I want to buy that. And I'm not saying I have the money, but this is as an example. And I go, yeah, fuck, I'll lend you the money if I can be a silent investor and I get 40% of the business and you run it. And now all of a sudden you're in a position to buy this and you've actually got someone maybe with some other business experience that you could bring in. There's ways to increase your business and bring people in. It's the old story, right? If I'm going to sell this beer and I'm going to sell 100 of them at $1, I'm going to make $100, fantastic. But maybe I give away 50% share to someone who's doing really well and they're going to take it global. Now I sell 10 million of them, but I only get 40% of them. I'm still far better off. And people fall short on that. So I don't want to give away a little. Give away a shitload if it means that it can be scaled and you get a percentage of something that's massive rather than 100% of something that's tiny.
Oh, agreed.
It's hard to disagree.
Dropping bombs here.
It's great. It's great arguing with people like you who agree with all the things I say, which is just beautiful.
Yeah, but it really comes down to people's ego, though. A lot of people don't want to give up something because they think it's speaking less of them, that they can't do it themselves. But it's got this term, like, I'm sure you would have heard it before. If you want to go fast, go by yourself. If you want to go far, do it together.
That's good advice for me. It really is. I think one of my favourite things is when people convince me of something that's different from what my current value was. So if I go, actually, I used to think this and now I think that, that's really, really powerful, right? And I'm doing something at the moment like that. I've got this amazing tech company which is just doing some cool stuff, but I'm sort of holding it back because I want it all myself. If I stood back, it should be, hey, Kirk, actually, get some investment, get on with it, and have a smaller piece of a bigger thing. And that's good advice. It's really good advice.
Law View around the corner and stuff like that. Look what they're fucking doing, right?
Yeah,
they're like almost 80 staff, I think now. We should actually get them on the podcast.
Yeah, my favorite company. I've got 2 favorite companies. So my favorite company is this little company called Rocket Lab. Can you believe it? They're launching rockets to the moon from Mahia in New Zealand. That is absurd. I just love that company so much, and Peter Beck, what a hero of mine. And the other one's this little company called Google. And I just think they do magic. I just love them so much. I wish they were mine. Yeah.
Do you love to have your perspective changed?
Yes, I do. So Kirk, who do you vote for? Don't know. Right? I think I fall into the category of swing voter. I think if you tried to pigeonhole me and go, Kirk, what's your ideology? You'd go, actually, I don't think he's got one. He seems to change based on new information, and that's the way we should be. That's the scientific method. You know, if we get new information, let's adapt our opinion, and
change it.
Yeah, and I just love hearing something that makes me go, that's better than what I thought. It's mine now. Yeah.
Well, that's actually science.
Well, it's education over arrogance, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm stuck in my ways. This is it. It's my way or the highway versus. Actually, you raised some really good points here. Let's go away and think about that. And you know what? You are right, or whatever it might be.
Oh, look, I'm wrong a lot. I love it, and I love arguing. And I don't think they call it arguing, but that's how I feel.
I call it debating.
Yeah, debating.
Oh, I think we've had some arguments.
Yeah, but that's my favourite because the key is I'm listening to you. So when you say these things, I'm not going because I'm right. I'm going, actually, that's better than what I thought previously. Let's adapt that. And I think, jeepers, if we could all do that, we'd all get smarter very quickly.
But it's got one thing that you both will be doing without realising it, and that's respecting each other's opinion.
Oh, no, I don't respect them at all.
Ain't that the truth? Well, tonight's on you then, buddy.
Yeah. Look, it's absolutely essential, right? Because I love this saying, you can't argue with a donkey, and of course you can't, right? And it doesn't matter how beautifully articulate your argument is. The donkey's not smart enough to understand it, let alone to tell you why you're wrong. So I'd rather argue with intelligent beings that sometimes say things that make my brain go, oh, I don't like that, but I love it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
You'd never admit that in person, though.
Yeah.
So is there anything from this kind of podcast that you feel like you haven't shared that you'd like to touch upon?
Well, typically at this point, from listening to all the previous podcasts, you asked me something along the lines of if you were to go. You asked me the question. Yeah.
So that was going to be the next question.
Yeah, right, okay. Yeah.
So if there was some advice you would tell your younger self, what would it be?
And here's my extremely long and thoughtful answer on that one.
I'm going to change it up because everybody's getting these answers.
Can you put that notebook away?
I actually really enjoy it.
So I do this through a thought experiment, right? This is a really interesting idea, and I encourage, if anybody's listening who's a young guy, young girl, please do this because it just is so valuable to me. There's a moment in time where I was sitting, I know exactly where it is. I was 18 or 19 years old. I was sitting on a beautiful bright green lawn on a sunny blue sky day out by this wall that runs through the middle of Auckland University, and I was waiting for Vicky, I believe. In fact, I might have been waiting to go to a pub tour, but that's irrelevant, right? But I know what it was. I was a 18, 19-year-old. And I know what I thought at the time. I thought to myself, I wonder what I'm going to be like in 10 years and 20 years and 30 years. What would I think would be success in 10 years and 20 years and 30 years? If I was to be able to just travel through time and just have a look, what's Kirk in 20 years' time? Would I be impressed with what he's achieved? Is that something I was looking for? Or would I be disappointed that he's actually hasn't done some of the things that we wanted to do as 18, 19-year-olds? So this magic point in time gives me this moment I can travel back to, and I can convert myself into that guy. Mm-hmm. And this is the magic of it. So I can then go, okay, I'm now sitting on the lawn as an 18, 19-year-old, and I can now know the answer to the question that I asked, which is, I wonder what I'm like in 10, 20 or 30 years' time. I can travel forward in time, and I can go, okay, this is pretty good, guys. You've got a good relationship. You've got kids, and you're doing business. You're doing the things that we thought that we should be doing. And I can go, yeah, thumbs up. I think we're successful, and we go further forward. But the fun part is I can do this for now, for 10 years, for 40 years, and I always look at it from the perspective of that guy sitting on the lawn, judging me and saying, hey, look, we kicked ass, or actually we let ourselves down. The question is what would you tell your younger self? I tell them every bloody day, mate, we're doing a good job, and you're the judge.
Yeah, excellent. Well, it's important to have that self-belief. And I've said it in previous podcasts and everything like that, and also doing things that you'd make yourself proud or people around you proud, because that brings that self-worth, the confidence, the belief in order to make the decisive decisions, be able to run the teams how you do. So, that's really great advice.
That's great, guys. Look, I mean, there's a whole, different subject, which I know you guys are big on around, tall poppy syndrome and how people who actually stand out above the crowd, how they're treated. I love what you're doing, which is saying, hey, look, we want to support people who are doing something a bit different. We're making stuff happen and saying, hey, these are winners. These are not people to be scared of or people who should be shunned. These are people who we should respect. And when I look at the guests that you've had on so far, every one of them absolute superstars. And I'm very honoured that you've allowed me to come on and be a part of that group.
Eventually.
No, thank you so much for coming on this. I know a lot of people gain a lot of insight. I know from myself, I've learned a lot today just listening to you, and different perspective of, actually that's very thought-provoking, and actually I agree with it too. So thank you very much for coming on here.
That's good, Gabriel. I'll be back once every 6 weeks on the same podcast as a special guest.
Okay, the special economist. So thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Look, we're happy to do it. Like, I'm just going to interject there. We're happy to do it if it gets enough listens. So if you fucking love it, share it, and we'll have them back.
We'll have you back.
and if we get 5 or 6, it's cool. I'll put it in my bucket list and I'll tick it off. Be part of a podcast. Thank you.
and that's another business we can talk about another day that we didn't even touch on. All right, thanks, guys. Thanks.
Thank you.
We'll fucking call it there. Bye.